The healing power of spices. And it's July 8th, 2021. And I actually never used a lot of spices. The salt and pepper, and a few sort of the basics, rosemary, oregano, that kind of thing. But it wasn't until I started taking my Ayurvedic course in January that I'm going, wow, these spices, especially the Indian spices, are amazing. And so these spices are divinely designed, as are we. Our body just loves them, especially the Indian spices, and spices from around the world. That certainly in Canada, that's where I grew up in Vancouver, North Vancouver, British Columbia, and those kinds of spices weren't part of our meals. They weren't part of what I was used to. And I've been learning that these spices, and I hope that will come across today, is that these spices help our body in different ways. One, it flavors the food, and it just makes that whole eating experience just so incredibly delicious. And so they've been designed to work in harmony with our body. And as with many things, you can have too much of something. You can have too much of a good thing. And when you're just getting to play with the spices, just try them in small amounts. You don't have to just all of a sudden load everything at once and go, oh, that was too much. But, just experiment with it. And I'm going to do just a brief review on what I taught sort of back in May. And that was just a bit about the gut microbiome and what it's about. And for those of you who didn't hear the chat in May, it might give you just a better context. So we've got this incredible system of our body. We've got a whole digestive system going from your mouth all the way down to the tailpipe, down at the end. And there are as many, if not more, gut bacteria, viruses. You've got a few parasites, and you've got good bacteria, you've got bad bacteria. And I think somebody said it's like 10 pounds in your body. And so it's just this amazing. And so we've got this hunter-gatherer. It's this divine design that, tens of thousands of years ago, we would go out, forage for food, and we would maybe hunt, catch the odd piece of meat and eat it. And the body knew how to digest it. It knew what to do with it. And now what we've done is we have added processed food to our diet with sugars, all sorts of things that our body is not used to having. And so it's kind of having to relearn. And my understanding is it can take 1,000 years or more for the body to recalibrate and say, oh, okay, I know how to deal with these things. But right now, our body can't handle it. And for some people, they get digestive issues right away. And they're like the canary in the coal mine. And it's like instant, my body doesn't like this. And they are the lucky ones, because for most of us, our body just keeps chugging along. It loves us so much. It just keeps taking it. We keep feeding it. It keeps doing what it can. And then over time, it says, oh dear, I can't handle this anymore. And then that's when we get symptoms and disease and lifestyle disease and that kind of thing. And we've got this complex system. We've got our brain and the vagus nerve. And they say that our gut actually has its own brain nervous system, which is amazing. And so they all work together. They all know what to do. They all work in cooperation, in collaboration. You eat the food, and all of a sudden systems just go clink, 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 and boom. It gets digested, and out it goes. And just while I'm thinking of it, I was reading the other day that if we have a really good digestive system and we're eating kind of the right food, we should be having at least 2 bowel movements every day. I'm going, well, interesting. Okay, so with that, what happens, we've got the systems working, and then all of a sudden we add these different kinds of food. And then what I call the inflammatory 5 is you've got the wheat, the gluten, you've got dairy, you've got processed food, you've got sugars and all the hidden sugars. Like it's over 60 names for artificial sugars in our food. And then the other one is the corn syrup. And that is just everywhere. It's in so much of our food. And that is playing havoc with our body as well. And so we've got this gorgeous little system, and you've got the gut wall. It's only 1 cell thick, and it doesn't take much for it to degenerate. And the other things that are part of our health is the exercise, our positive attitude, the gratitude we have, our social relationships. How much patience do you have? How much self-love do we have for ourselves? And then letting that spread out towards others. And of course, it's always in communication with you. And what are your habits, your expectations, and your beliefs? Because that comes into play as well. And then there will be some take-home hints, and that there's some recipes that I've got that I will send in a PDF file when we're done. And so that's that dollop of gratitude. And as you're preparing the food, chopping those vegetables, or putting it in the fry pan or in the oven, and just having gratitude and just appreciation for everything that put that food onto your plate: the earth, the soil, the farmer, and the trucker, and the people in the store, and how they so lovingly put it all the broccoli, all the heads together, and just the whole community that brings our food to our plate, and then just giving gratitude for that. And so just imagine your gut like a flowing brook. The water comes down from the mountains, it comes from the rain. That brook is nourishing all the vegetation along the side, and your gut is like that flowing brook. And when it's functioning, when it's in balance, when it's in harmony, it just trickles along. It knows what to do. We feed it the right food, and voila, we have this healthy, thriving body. And so we've got this incredible digestive system. Starts with chewing your food, your mouth, and actually begins with you smelling your food, and then that tasting of food, and your eyes looking at the food and go, wow, this tomato is fantastic. And then all of a sudden the systems start in place, and then the brain gets going. It starts saying, oh, okay, we've got food coming in. And then it gets the enzymes going in your whole digestive system in your gut. And so we've got our stomach, and then it gets sort of churned up there with all sorts of juices. We've got the liver, which is so incredibly important. And what I've been learning recently is if you've got a leaky gut, you could have a leaky liver, because things get backed up into our system. So we've got this leaky gut going on because the molecules that have come down through the stomach weren't chewed quite enough, or it took too long to digest. Those macromolecules tear a hole, like imagine a piece of cheesecloth. And so those macromolecules tear holes in that 1 cell lining of your gut. And then all of a sudden, all the little guys come along and say, oh, there's a hole in the fence. We want to come and play too. So off they go. And they leave the gut where they're supposed to be, and they flood the system. And the blood actually goes through the liver and then out to the rest of your body. Well, that poor liver is trying to detox the toxins and everything else, because that's not, those macromolecules aren't supposed to be there. They're supposed to be in your gut and going through your digestive system. So the liver gets clogged up, and then that affects the bile. And again, you've got this a backup, and then toxins are created from that process. I mean, our bodies are fascinating. It's incredible what they can do. And for years, they keep working away at keeping us as healthy as we can be. And then, things happen. You put on weight, you go to the doctor and says, oh, you're pre-diabetic. And you're going, what? How can that be? I feel fine, or I was fine. But again, it's probably taken years to get you to that point. And so we've got this beautiful, beautiful system, and they're in constant communication. And wouldn't it be nice if we could have that awareness of some of that communication system? And actually, when we know that this is happening, then we can make those changes. So factors affecting our health and gut. So like a flood, all of a sudden the water isn't going where it's supposed to be going. It just floods out into the system. And that flooding water is like all those food molecules that have left the gut and into the body. And then that's where you've got inflammatory things going on. And you might be, say, allergic to something, to a food. And it could be that food sensitivity is because of these leaking macromolecules. Anyway, so we've talked about the inflammatory 5. Poor food combining makes a difference. Some foods are better, and like our traditional American meal or Canadian meal, with you got your meat, your potatoes, you got your grain, your breads, or your sandwiches. The meat and the sandwich going together with the bread is actually not the best combination for your gut and for the digestive process. I mean, it takes different enzymes to break them down, and it just makes it harder for the gut to work. Eating on the run. You got to go to a meeting, and you're eating in the car, you gobble your food down, whoop, you've got this lump of food sitting in your gut. It's going, okay, I have to break this down somehow. Glyphosate, which is in Roundup Ready, which is a herbicide, what is it called? Anyway, it's used in chemical farming to reduce weeds and weeds growing amongst the plants we eat. Well, now they're finding that that's just in so much of our food, and it's doing a lot of damage. It actually impairs the bile production. That's one thing they found. I think it was a year or two ago. It impairs, and so then all of a sudden you get this toxic load of the glyphosate, and then the bile isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing and digesting fats and doing the other things it does. Some of just our old habits, ice drinks, and having cold food is not best for your digestion, and not eating enough vegetables, and eating before you go to bed. And some of you may have heard of the intermittent fasting. And some people only have 1 or 2 meals a day, and they sort of eat within a 4 or 5 hour window. But it can be as simple as, you finish your dinner at 6 or 7, and then you allow 3 to 4 hours for the food to digest before you go to bed. And then if you don't eat until 7 o'clock the next morning, there's 12 hours right there. And what they're finding with the intermittent fasting is that your brain shrinks a little bit at nighttime. So you get this flood of blood flowing across through your brain, and it's helping flush out toxins as well. And your gut's got a chance to rest. And so with that process, you wake up, you're hungry, and then you eat some more. And I know some people that they don't eat till 10 or noon, and they've lost weight with it. They feel good with it. And that's just something for you to play with to see what works for you. Myself, I kind of like my 3 meals. I'm cutting out the snacking in between more and more, but uh, yeah, so just give it a try. And for me, what is healthy eating and being healthy is all of these things. It's our mood, being happy, and loving each moment of the day, finding the joy in your life, just the joy of looking at the clouds and the flowers, and just being in harmony with your body, with your family, your life, and just part of being youthful. And you can be youthful for a long time. That sort of that belief system that, oh, as we get older, yeah, we're not quite so healthy, you can't move as much. So all those things go, and your mind is going, okay, well, if that's what she or he is saying, then I guess that must be true. I guess I have to bend over a little more, can't exercise or whatever. And you know what? Not true. I have siblings that are proving that as we speak. And so it's wonderful to see them active. And there was a book called What Makes Olga Run? And she died a few years ago, but she was like 94. And she started running and doing races, like track races, when she was in her 70s. And she was the lead, the eldest, I think probably at some point, the eldest runner in the race. And she just kept going, you know? And so we can be youthful and just talk to your body, say, thank you. Thank you for being all that you are. And I'm going to help you as much as I can. And so now our topic of the day, the healthy spices. And there's a few herbs too, which I'll mention after I talk about the spices. And they actually calm and aid our digestive processes. And I just wanted to point out that we are unique. Our body is unique. We have a unique fingerprint. And our digestive system is like that. It's unique as well. And so just keep that in mind so that, when I'm suggesting these things, that it may not work for your body, and just be aware of that. Try it in small amounts. And life is, we're a science experiment, and we're scientists and learning more and more about how this all works together. And so we can create this beautiful balance, starting with our food. And there are other things that I've mentioned, but the food is something you have control over. You control what you eat. You decide what to eat. And I know there are some neural pathway brain, the sugar creates new neural pathways, and it's harder to get off sugar than it is cocaine. I mean, go figure, right? And unfortunately, the food industry has figured that out, and they know, that they know, which I think in time, we as smart consumers need to make smart choices and don't buy the food. And when we stop buying it, then it becomes a non-item and go, oh, okay, that's not selling very well. And as we get smarter and use that, more of that divine, that intuition that says, you know what, I'd like to have that, but maybe I won't have it quite so much. You just sort of start reducing it. So, and so these are spices, and actually all these spices, except for the mace, are in this garam masala. And I did a YouTube, Facebook page about a month ago, and I actually made it. And you just take bits of these spices and you heat them, and then you grind them all together, and it's like the most delicious meal of spices you could ever imagine. So I invite you to play with that. And so these spices do amazing things for our body. And just some basic facts about our immune system: 80% of your immune system lives in your gut. And the digestion and the metabolism accounts for 60% of your daily energy expenditure. So if we're asking our body to spend all that energy in digesting food, let's make it food that it can easily digest. And we've talked about the gut lining just being 1 cell thick. And the ghee butter, I don't think I tasted ghee. Well, I guess I must have had some when I went to India in 2017, but I don't remember it as a singular item. But now it's just part of my daily food. And I've got a slide later that kind of shows you all the benefits of ghee. But one thing it does too, they found that it patches the holes in your gut lining. I mean, how incredible is that? It's amazing. I love it. And maintaining a balanced microbiome in your gut can improve your digestive issues, your immune system, because when you've got the leaky gut, your immune system is a little out of whack, and eventually your total body health, your mind and your body. And I met a person last year who suffered from serious depression, like she was suicidal for months. And then with the sunny weather, she would feel better. And then when she went onto a plant-based diet to help her diabetic husband, she was noticing that, oh, I don't have those depressive feelings anymore. And she was just like a flower blooming and just so thrilled that the food that was healing whatever it was that was causing that depression. And they know that there is a link between the food we eat and the toxins that are formed and how we feel, our mood. And so just, I mean, amazing. And so things that are a little harmful, like fried foods, processed meats, and the very cold foods can create an undigested residue. And that's what happens with those kinds of foods. And it forms toxins. And it's called ama, according to Ayurveda. And they feel that it causes 90% of the disease in our body. The Ayurvedic learnings from 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, it was all about digestion. And they knew that if you had really good digestive processes, that you would be healthy. And they would, if things were happening in your body, they would look, okay, well, what's going on in your life? They would look at sort of your total body, the family, and what you were eating. And so it does improve so many aspects of our body. And so Agni is another Ayurvedic word, and it is basically the life force energy. And it's in food. And we all know that, and some of us have a sort of deeper understanding of life here on earth, of plants, of the animals, of spirit. And when we think about the energy, everything is energy. The universe is, we are, our food is. And when we eat that food, we're eating that energy that came from the soil. And within a tablespoon of soil are like 1 billion microorganisms that we don't see. And we tend to, as humans, we kind of believe, we see something, okay, that's true. I mean, it's, gravity, we don't see it, but it happens. And with these microorganisms, we're not fully aware of what they're actually doing and working with the plants that we are consuming. And it's a little bit about that in another slide with this Dr. Joseph Pizzorno. And that was something that he came to a better understanding about. And so when we eat these foods, we are eating these plants that are connected to the soil, the sun. There's this beautiful, complete picture of the food we're eating. And when we have that understanding, I think it's easier to just sort of have that feeling of oneness, of connectedness with the food that we're eating and with our body as well. And as I say, it's easy once you know, but I'll have patience, and it's one step at a time. If it's taken years to get to this place where you're not feeling 100%, you don't feel like you're thriving, where's your energy gone? Have patience. because it will take time for your gut to just rebalance itself. And my little note on the bottom, just be cautious when you're trying new food and new spices. There are some foods like kale that you don't eat, I think, when you're having blood thinners. And so check with your practitioner, your health practitioner, doctor, before you start playing with these different spices. And what I also do with my Trust Your Gut program is teach people to use your body as a way of identifying, is this right for my body? And it's the body sway where you say, show me yes. And your body, for me, it's I lean forward. And show me no, it's sideways, but it's different for everybody. And the other way that I've learned is you have your fingers out, your thumb and your pointer finger in one hand, and you take the thumb and your pointer finger in the other hand, and you open it up. So if you can say, this apple is good for me, and it stays tight, that's your truth, and the apple is good for you. But if it splits open, then not the best thing for you to have at that time, because it fluctuates from day to day. Same thing with your supplements. You can take supplements every day, but you might want to check do I need this vitamin C every day, or can I have it every other day? Because, did I take enough for it to do my body good for the next 24, 48 hours? So just that's one thing to pay attention to. So black pepper, there's piperine in black pepper, and it aids digestion by stimulating gut enzymes that help with the digestion of the proteins. I put a little bit on my food. Hold on. I can't do that. All right. And I just wanted to show it comes from a vine, actually, which is interesting. So there's 4 spices. There's black pepper, cardamom, fennel, and the next one's on the next page. When you dry roast them, just separately in a saucepan, fry pan, dry roast them for a couple of minutes, don't burn them. And then you cool them, put them in a pepper grinder or a spice grinder, or I use my coffee grinder because I don't grind coffee in it. And the aroma that comes out is the oil, the essence of those seeds. It's like apples and oranges, or fish and, I don't know, tomatoes. They're totally different. And it's just, you just breathe it in, and then you just know that you're enhancing the flavor of your food so much. So that's the pepper. And then cardamom is another great little spice. It comes in this little seed pod, and the seeds are inside. And it improves your digestive function. It helps the sluggish digestion. So if you're constipation, you're drinking water, maybe try a little more cardamom in your food. And it also helps with mucus congestion, reducing it. And it accelerates the gastric emptying because of the volatile oil in it. And it helps release the elimination of gas in your the gas buildup, depending on the food that you've eaten. And part of that comes from the toxins. Some of it comes from your food combining. Cinnamon, one of my favorites, and it's got lots of really helpful properties. Antimicrobial, reducing gas and fermentation. It improves digestion and absorption of the nutrients, warms the blood and your body, and it's got antioxidants and polyphenols that reduce inflammation. And it has more antioxidants than garlic and oregano. And something about the kind of cinnamon that you buy, something I learned recently is that there's 2 kinds of tea. There's Ceylon cinnamon, which grows in Ceylon, Sri Lanka. And then the cinnamon, which is grown throughout many parts of the world. And those types of cinnamon have coumarin in it, which is part of that clotting mechanism. So if you have blood clotting issues, then if you want to try the cinnamon, go for the Ceylon cinnamon. I can get it actually in my local grocer. He's got the Ceylon ground cinnamon and the cinnamon bark, which it's harvested from the tree. And usually family operations that create it. And I've noticed that the Ceylon cinnamon, there's more bark sort of woven inside compared to the cinnamon sticks that I bought just from the local grocery store. And there's I am just imagining all that family as they peel it off and they dry it and they just lovingly put those cinnamon, several layers of bark inside the cinnamon stick that we get. And so you can get organic cinnamon. And the other is coriander seed. And this is the other one where you can dry roast and grind it yourself. Once you've done that and tried it, then you'll probably never go back to buying those 4 ground spices again, because they're just so aromatic and so delicious. The coriander is sweet and cooling for the intestinal tract. It accelerates the digestion process, relieving gas in the tract. And it's the seed of the cilantro plant. And so my husband, who does not like cilantro, and I love it, so he's getting a bit of that essence of the coriander when I cook with it. And cumin seeds and fennel. And they actually look quite similar, both from a plant. And the fennel is this beautiful, lacy flower. And of course, every little piece of the flower is the seed itself. So the cumin seeds, another one of the dry roasting and grind your own. It's anti-inflammatory. It's got cooling properties, and it can reduce, you've got gut pain and stress. There's a tea that I'll mention later that you can drink that just is really, really soothing. And it helps with bile production. So that's good to know. And it helps create secretions needed for your digestion and absorption as well. And in India, it's known as jeera. So they're the yummy little cumin seeds. And the other is the fennel. It's got that licorice taste to it. It's anti-inflammatory and it soothes the muscles, reducing the bloating that happens with some people. And it can reduce nausea and intestinal cramping, helps break down the fat, and it reduces the sugar cravings, and it helps indigestion and absorption. And I think it's the fennel that they have in Indian restaurants, Greek restaurants too, I think. And they chew it after they've had their meal. And so that's sort of a habit, a cultural thing that they've just done for hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years, to help reduce the any indigestion that might be going on. Like if you had too much food, or maybe the food combining. And so just, another little tip for you to have, take you on your way. And fenugreek is another lovely little seed, comes from a plant, and they're called methy seeds. And it's full of antioxidants, which helps our body in different ways. It's a natural digestive, helps flush out toxins, and lubricating helps the stomach and the intestine. And then the other is the black mustard seed, which I use a lot of these days. And it's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and packed with fiber, vitamin A, K, and C, has magnesium in it, and selenium, which is good for the bones, nails, and teeth. What I haven't researched is actually how much fiber it would take for that to have an impact in your body. Because when I cook with it, I put my ghee butter in my pan, and I'll take maybe an eighth of a teaspoon. I don't measure, I just take a pinch and put it in there. And you heat it up, kind of medium-high heat, and you wait for it to pop. Same thing with the any of the seeds, the fenugreek, the cumin, the coriander seeds. So when you're using the seeds in the oil, you just wait a minute or two, and you see them popping. And as they're popping, they're releasing their essence and their flavor. And then you add whatever food that you are cooking in, whether it's your greens or some dal that you've cooked up and you want to sort of add a bit of flavor to it. And so I love playing with that. It's actually probably one of the most common spices that I use. And so turmeric, I suspect most of you are familiar with turmeric, and there's all sorts of beautiful beneficial things that this plant is, a tuber like ginger. And it helps promote liver detox, which, as I'm reading more and more, is really, really important. It regulates the intestinal flora, protects the gut during stressful times. It has the ability to lower your blood sugar levels in diabetics, aids in digestion and absorption and metabolism. It's antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antifungal, and they're even finding it's anti-cancer. So it's an incredible spice to use. And at the end of this presentation, I've got a recipe for it's a turmeric ginger tea. And I've been taking it, I've been trying to take it almost every day. And just to help aid the whole digestion, detoxifying of the body. And you can buy it fresh and cook it fresh. And you can buy it in the just as the spice. And nowadays you can even buy it in capsules. And I'm not about to tell you how much to take. Again, you can muscle test it, find out, see what the recommended is. You can Google it. And just if you haven't got that in your kitchen cupboard, I highly recommend you do. When I'm cooking my rice or my dal, I'm always putting in a couple of shakes of turmeric. In India, they use it all the time. And yeah, and it just, I guess they knew, the Vedics knew from 4,000 or 5,000 years ago how beneficial it was. And it's a key Indian spice. It's not, I mean, curry is a mixture of spices. So turmeric isn't curry. It's a spice unto its own. And so some foods and herbs for the gut. We've got, I'm not going to go into this in detail, but in my reading, my research, these were things that popped up with different naturopathic doctors, other doctors that are helping their clients, their patients, with improving their health and their digestion. So they've got cyprium and aloe vera, prebiotics, which is the fiber that feeds the good bacteria. It's food for the good bacteria. And we need to increase that good bacteria so that we can get that, what we call the bad gut bacteria, kind of in the back seat so that it's not overwhelming our system. And the probiotics is the good bacteria, and they help fight off excess, the bad gut buddies that we have. Some doctors are being a little more cautious about prescribing a lot of probiotics because one view is that if you keep taking it, then your body kind of forgets that it's supposed to make its own. I mean, it does, it makes its own. And there are times when maybe we need it. And if we're trying to detoxify, then maybe getting some with the lactobacillus, the bacteriobacillus, and taking it for a time and then checking with your body. Have I got enough? Have I got enough of that probiotic? And then when your body says, yeah, I'm done, I don't need it right now, then you go back to just not taking it and getting it through your food. There's licorice, deglycyrrhizinated licorice, another good one, the glutamine. It's a gut healing nutrient in cabbage and brassicas, and they're finding that cabbage, I think this research has been out for a number of years, that the cabbage family, the brassicas, actually help, especially women with breast cancers, and just because of all the nutrients in the cabbage. It's a good thing to add to your diet. And for some, like me, I can't take a lot of coleslaw, but I can cook it. And apparently when you chop your food, wait a few minutes, like 5 minutes, before you heat it up, because then whatever the enzymes are, they are activated, and some of it doesn't get destroyed when you heat it. So before you don't just chop and toss into the heat, give it 5 minutes and let it do what it naturally does. Basil, Tulsi tea, called holy basil, helps the body deal with stress, and it's very calming. Calendula, it reduces gut inflammation, detox the pathogens in the body, and helps the gut wells, the gut walls. And calendula is a flower, and I sometimes eat the odd petal or two when I'm in the garden. So I didn't realize that that's what it was doing. But then I don't actually know how many petals or flowers I need to eat before it actually does that. Chamomile calms the nerves. You've got peppermint, antispasmodic, helps with constipation and irritable bowel syndrome. Marshmallow, not the sugar kind, attracts water, and then that viscous coating soothes the membranes in your gut. Oregano, used for thousands of years to aid digestive health. And plantain, which is that plant, we call it a weed in our garden, and the First Nations people used it a lot for healing wounds, actually. And it helps heal the gut wall as well. And triphala is another combination, and you can get it as a powder form. It's also really good. And a little bit of information from this Dr. Joseph Pizzano, and I've got the book. I just started reading his book, and he's a naturopathic doctor, and he's got a curious mind. And when things don't work right, he's going, why not? And so what he was talking about on a podcast I was listening to is that when we add the chemical fertilizers to the soil, it disrupts the soil microbiome in the plant. Plants know how to deal with toxins. They know now that there's a tree in Africa in the desert, and when the animals start eating the bark or the leaves of the tree, all of a sudden the trees start creating a toxin in the leaves in the tree, and that message gets sent to the neighboring trees. So when the deer, I think goes to the next tree to have a munch, all of a sudden it's toxic, and the deer's going, this is awful. So it leaves, and so those trees don't get overeaten and destroyed by the animals. The plants, the plants with our food, that's the same thing. And so these plants, there's toxins in the soil. They apparently get, there's the whole too much sunlight can be toxic for some plants. Human activity, there's toxins, there's bugs in the soil that can be toxic to the plants. So they develop these antitoxins, and when we eat that plant, we get that protection. I'm going, like, that just sort of blew my socks off. So that's why it's so important. A whole new game changer for me about why to eat organic food. Because when we eat organic, then those plants and all those protective chemicals they have, the substances they have in their plant, in the produce, we get the benefit. I mean, that's such a beautiful, co-creation, synergistic process. It's beautiful. And the other thing is that years ago, they looked at plants and they said, okay, what are the life and death elements of plants? And what do we need to focus on? So they came up with 50 vitamins and minerals that we need to keep ourselves healthy. Well, according to Joseph Pizzano's research, there's 50,000 molecules in plants, not 50. And so when we have the chemically grown food and only have a small selection of food, we're missing out on so much of that plant information, nutrition, nurturing that we can get. And what they're finding is that the fewer we have of these plant molecules, the sicker we get. There's actually some research. If I can remember, I'll put a link to the podcast that was done just a couple of weeks ago. And it's fascinating, really fascinating. So it's not just the microbiome that's important, the organic food we're eating, what we're feeding our gut, because chemical fertilizers are not part of our hunter-gatherer system. It's foreign, totally foreign. And the poor body, the liver and the gallbladder and the whole circulatory system, everything is trying to figure out what to do with this stuff. And a few more little tidbits from Dr. Joseph. And some of it, I've talked about it. I've put it in a little picture form. We've got the good and the bad bacteria. And when you eat the processed food, you've already got your gut overgrown with these viruses. I just moved this over. There we go. And so we've got these endotoxins with these bad bacteria, because as they're digesting the food and decomposing, they're creating more toxins. So it's like this, I mean, it's unfortunate, like the popcorn maker gone out of control, and a little bit's okay. But when you've got too much, then you've got this incredible toxic load in your gut. And then that ends up with our ill health or disease. And from what I was reading with this other naturopathic doctor, he was saying, and that affects the liver because we get so much toxins. And you've got the whole lymph system happening with the liver. And so you've got these toxins that go through the blood to the liver, and all of a sudden the liver is just overwhelmed. And what they're finding is huge increases in fatty liver. And fatty liver used to be associated with alcoholics. Well, children are not alcoholics, and they're getting fatty liver. And we had a friend who was diagnosed a number of years ago with fatty liver. And she was a few pounds overweight, but not a lot. And now I'm going, oh, it's the fatty liver is from this buildup of toxins. And I'm going, wow, like a whole new, like my eyes are just sort of popping open. So, we've got these, happy little guys in our gut, and then there's the ones with the teeth going, oh. So what happens is you get this imbalance. And what Dr. Joseph, his estimate is a third to half of the North American population have excess gut permeability, which is leaky gut, which you talked about earlier. Now everything gets out into the blood system, and that's where the immune system's going, whoa, warning, let's get all those the lymph and the white blood cells, everybody working together to get rid of it. And then you get inflammation, you get arthritis, you get different systems in your body. And so it's just like the floodgates have opened, and the toxins inflame your gut, and they just undermine the whole gut function, and they overload the liver. And a few bits from Ayurveda is what they promote is eating whole food, having balanced meal, and waiting 3 hours between your meal so that it can be digested. We can't keep adding food to it. So when you're having that snack, ask yourself, are you hungry? Are you really hungry, or are you thirsty? Because the other day I was really sluggish, and I was like falling asleep, and I went downstairs and I had a whole glass of water, and within about 20 minutes I'm going, my energy picked up. And was I tempted to have some crackers or something? Absolutely. But I'm going, no, okay, I'm working on that no snack, let that food digest. And I asked, like, I checked, I wasn't hungry, but it was this dehydration thing going on. Drink ginger or the cumin tea once a day, avoiding the ice drinks. And you don't want to overload the digestive system. And that's where, when you practice your mindful eating and you slow down, take a moment before you eat, that will help. And I've got a couple of slides coming that will sort of help emphasize that point. And taking small sips of warm water with your meal. And what I do now, from my coach Andrea's suggestion, is you have a cup of tea. Make a cup of tea, a cup of herbal tea while you're making your dinner. So you're sipping on some nice warm tea, and make it your favorite tea, and have that while you're cooking dinner. And that just helps calm you down. You're having your tea and you're just kind of one with the food. And the food combinations, they look at hot and cold foods, and it's not just temperature wise. Some foods are cooling and some are heating. And there's a good website, which I got further down, that's a good Andrea and John, they have two different websites, and you can put in health conditions or you can put in the food, and they've got recipes and lots of helpful information. And so the other thing with watermelon, you don't mix it with your fruit salad, and bananas, you don't mix it with your fruit salad because they digest differently than the other foods. So you throw the other food, but melons, you only eat by themselves. I don't know what it does to your gut, but it just somehow upsets the little happy gut buddies. And we want to keep our gut buddies happy, because when we keep them happy, then we're a whole lot healthier. And a little bit about ghee. It's clarified butter. I make it myself now. It's not cheap. And I found a source of organic. It's not organic, but it's grass-fed butter. And one store is about $3 cheaper per half pound. And I make it every few weeks. And so I tried, there is a company locally that makes it, but it's at least $4 more expensive for one package. So that's $8 more expensive. So I'm going, okay, mine I get from Ontario, and I make it myself. And the thing with butyrate is ghee contains butyrate, and it's a short chain fatty acid, which means the integrity of your intestinal wall. And that's really important. If you've got a leaky gut, you need to sort of work on sort of repairing it in many different ways. We've got the spices, you've got teas, and when you cook with the ghee, you can cook at high temperature. It doesn't affect it. And it's just, I enjoy the flavor of it. And so leaky gut, what we know, it's present in chronic conditions, depression, diabetes, the inflammatory bowel disease, rheumatoid arthritis. And actually, I think they're linking rheumatoid arthritis now with women with the glyphosate. And if you've got excessive glyphosate, then you're at risk for the rheumatoid arthritis. And let's see, and I can't see all my screen. You've got 10 times as many bacteria. Oh yeah, and you've got the cells in your body. Yeah, that's 10 pounds worth of stuff. And so we've kind of talked about this, other things as well. And the wonders of ghee, again, it's just more about the ghee. And it's played a role in Ayurveda for centuries. And it was prized for anti-inflammatory, digestive, and its therapeutic properties. It balances out blood sugar, weight, and hunger, and it enhances the absorption of other nutrients, and apparently improves cognitive function, does not raise your cholesterol, and it has an effect of lubricating the connective tissue in the body, rendering it sort of more flexible. And they did a study with ghee, and they did blood tests on people, and they were testing environmental toxins. and PCBs. And these people went on a ghee cleanse, and I did it in February. And you drink the liquid ghee, this increasing amounts over a period of 5 to 6 days. And when they retested them, they had a 47% reduction in PCBs and a 57% reduction in the other environmental toxins in their blood. So I'm going, okay, it wasn't a huge study, but for those people that did that and they had the measurements before and after, I'm going, okay, that's something to pay attention to. So a couple of websites for you to go to. There's the joyfulbelly.com. And they have a dosha quiz, which is kind of fun, that also sort of impacts the kind of food you eat and the season that you eat it in. And I'll let you play with that one. And a Good Gut, ayurveda.com. And Andrea's other site is butteredveg.com. So if you're a vegetarian, she's got a beautiful writer, and she's a chef as well as an Ayurvedic nutrition coach. And so you'll get lots of, and I'll send a link to you on a PDF file with that as well. And the Gingerline pickle, I have it either before my meal or with my meal. And what it does is it stimulates the digestive processes. And if you're feeling a bit sluggish, you can take it anytime. And it's lime and salt and ginger. Beautiful, a little mixture. And again, no snacking after dinner if you can. Smaller plates, because when you have a smaller plate, the brain says, oh, I'm satisfied with that amount of food. It might take a little practice. It does in our household, because we've had big 10-inch plates for, well, I've had it, well, I'm 71, so probably for the last 70 years, big plates, and you just pile on the food, and eating slowly. Just eating slow. Don't eat when you're stressed. Don't eat on the run. And mindful eating. Take that breath before you eat and just enjoy the food and breathe before you eat your meal. Take a couple of deep breaths, because that also, when you have a deep breath in, the diaphragm, it puts actually some pressure on the liver to help sort of get it sort of functioning a little better. So it's amazing, all our systems working together. And the soothing tea I was talking about is called CCF, cumin, coriander, and fennel. And the turmeric tea is on buttered veg. And that's turmeric and ginger, lovely tea to have. And again, I'll have that recipe on a PDF file for you. And our dear gut, it's the hardest working system in the body. And it's got a challenging job of digesting all the food that we eat, absorbing all the nutrients, but not the toxins. It tries not to absorb them. And while activating the immune system, and it kills off harmful bacteria. And so we've got this incredible, beautiful system. So we can restore our gut, and your body can recover, and you can prevent many illnesses. I recommend Dr. Joe Pizzerno's book, The Toxic Solution. He takes you through the whys and wherefores. He also has a program where you go through a detox, because he says it's important to detox and then feed that good back, the good gut buddies with good food and probiotics and that kind of thing. Anyway, it's an interesting read, and I would recommend it. And so thank you today. And remember, have grace and compassion on this journey. It took you a while. I mean, for those of you who are younger than me, that's great. You don't have to wait till you're 71 to realize that, oh, there's some things in my body, in my food I'm eating and my lifestyle that I need to pay attention to. And so, and I had that sarcoidosis 20 years ago. I went on raw food for over a year, 3 years. And that healed my sarcoidosis, which was in my lungs. And, you know, as a registered nurse at the time, I'm going, I don't want to be in prednisone the rest of my life. And so the universe brought people into my life, raw foodists and others, and I healed. And 5 years later, I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and a year later, the Mount Everest Base Camp. So I know my lungs are in good condition, and I want to keep it that way for a long time to come. And so when our gut is healthy, our body, our mind, and our spirit, because when you are having that peaceful meal, you don't have the television on, all those different things, then we're giving ourselves a better chance to live longer. So I'm going to stop the screen share. There we go. And so that's it for my presentation.